Hello everyone, welcome to Rightboard. I am Soorya and I am very happy to announce something new. Rightboard is now starting economic classes for CBSE Class 11 and Class 12 students. Welcome to Study with Soorya Economics. Economics is a subject that many students find difficult when they first enter class 11. Suddenly, you have new concept, new terminology, graphs, formulas, numericals, and a completely different way of thinking. And many students have one common question: how should I actually study economics? Should I memorize the definitions? Should I read the textbook again and again? How should I learn graphs? How do I solve numericals? And how should I write answers in the examination? So, before we start our economics chapter, I want to give you a proper strategy for studying this subject. Because if you learn how to study economics, the subject becomes much easier. So, let's begin. Don't memorize first. First and most importantly, don't start by memorizing. When you learn a new economic concept, first ask yourself, what does this mean? And why does this happen? For example, when you learn the law of demand, don't simply try to memorize the definition. Ask yourself, why does quantity demanded usually fall when price increases? When you understand the reason behind the concept, the definition became much easier to remember. So remember, understand first, memorize later. Start with NCERT. Your second step is to start with your NCERT textbook. Don't depend completely on guidebook or ready-made notes. Read the prescribed textbook carefully. While reading a chapter, identify definitions, important concept, examples, graph, and important statements. But remember, your first reading is not about memorizing everything. Your first reading is about getting familiar with the chapter and understanding the basic ideas. So, read, understand, then revise. So, NCERT should be your Bible. Okay. Next is make a concept notebook. My third suggestion is to maintain a separate economic concept notebook. This does not have to be a notebook where you copy the entire textbook. Instead, use it intelligently. Write down important definitions, difficult concepts, important formulas, graphs, key relationships, and mistakes that you make while practicing. Okay, now let's come to something that many economic students are afraid of: graphs. Please don't treat graphs as something that you simply have to draw in the examination. Graphs tell a story. Whenever you see an economic graph, ask yourself, what is on the x-axis, what is on the y-axis, what does the curve represent, why does the curve slope upward or downward, what happens when the price changes, what happens when some other factors changes, and is it a movement along the curve or a shift the entire curve. Once you understand the story behind the graph, you don't have to memorize it blindly. You can actually recreate it from your understanding. So remember, don't just draw the graph, understand the graph. Graphs definitely tell the story. Okay. Next is understand the logic, not just the law. Economics is all about relationship. Price affect demand, income can affect consumption, cost affect production. Change in one factor can lead to change in another. So whenever you study a concept, try to connect with it, something you see in everyday life. Let's take a simple example. Imagine that the price of your favorite product suddenly become twice as expensive. Would you continue buying exactly the same quantity? Maybe you would buy less. Maybe you would look for a substitute. Maybe you would wait for the price to come down. This simple real life situation can help you understand the economic concept. So don't study economics as a collection of definitions. Understand the logic behind the relationship. When the logic is clear, the concept stays in your mind much longer. Okay. So next is practice numericals. Now let's talk about numericals. If you are afraid of economic numericals, don't worry. Numericals become easier with practice, and the best way to solve them is step by step. First, write the formula. Second, substitute the value carefully. Third, calculate the step by step. And finally, write the answer clearly. Don't try to do everything mentally. Show your working. And when you make a mistake, don't simply correct the answer and move on. Find out where you made the mistake. Was the formula wrong? Was the substitution wrong? Was there a calculation error? Or did you misunderstand the question? This is how you have to improve. Practice answer writing. Another very important part of economics preparation is answer writing. Knowing the concept is one thing. Being able to communicate that concept properly in an examination is another. So practice writing answers regularly. For a descriptive question, depending on what the question asks, you can follow a simple structure, definition or introduction, then explanation, then wherever necessary, diagram or example, and finally conclusion. Don't write unnecessarily long answer. Write clear, relevant, and well structured answers. And when a graph is required, make sure your graph is neat, properly labeled, and relevant to the question. Remember, good knowledge deserves good presentation and revise actively. Now let's talk about revision. Many students think revision means reading the same chapter again and again, but there is a better way. Try active revision. Close your textbook, take a blank sheet of paper, and try to explain the concept in your own words. Can you define it? Can you explain why it happens? Can you draw the graph? Can you remember the important formula? Can you solve a question without looking at the answer? If you can explain something without looking at the textbook, that is a good sign that you actually understand it. So remember, don't just read, recall. The more you actively recall, the stronger your learnings become. Weekly revision, and finally, revise every week. Please don't wait until your examination is just around the corner. Every week, keep some time specifically for economic revision. Revise concepts, graph, numerical, previous questions, and answer writing. You don't need to study everything again from the beginning every week. Instead, identify what you learned during the week and revise those concepts. And once a chapter is completed, keep coming back to it during your last revision. Remember, small regular revision is much better than last minute study. So, the RB method is, how are we going to study economics here at Rightboard? We are going to follow a simple learning method. Understand, first understand the concept, connect it with the other concept and real life situation, apply your knowledge to examples and questions. Then practice graph, numericals and examination questions. Revise actively and regularly. Write and finally learn how to present your knowledge clearly in the examination. So the RB learning journey is understand, connect, apply, practice, revise, write. That is our approach and that is the RB method. So, if you are a CBSE Class 11 or Class 10 economics students, I invite you to join me on this learning journey. Here at Redboard, we are going to take economics concept by concept, graph by graph, and question by question. We will focus on strong concept, clear explanation, real life application, graphs, numerical, answer writing, and broad examination preparation. The goal is not simply to finish the syllabus, the goal is to make you confident through to understand, analyze, and apply economics. So if you have been thinking economics is difficult, let's change that. Don't be afraid of economics. Understand it, connect it, practice it. I am Soorya and this is Study with Soorya. Rightboard is now teaching economics for class 11 and 12 and this is just the beginning. Let's learn economics together. So you in the next class. Bye bye.